Good afternoon, Mr. President.
Right.
Sir, thank you very much for taking the time out to meet with members of the press here. Gathered here today, we have a number of international, regional, and local press. So, with your permission, sir, if you're ready, we are ready to start whenever you are, sir.
Sorry?
We are ready to start whenever you are, sir.
I'm very ready.
Okay. So, if you permit, we will maybe start by taking a series of maybe 3 questions, and then we can proceed from there. If you'd like, we can take 1 question at a time. All right. So please, for those who'd like to ask a question, like I said, please raise your hand, introduce yourselves, and the media house you're from. I will start here. Peter.
Hi, my name is Erik Esbjörnsson. I'm a writer for Swedish daily Dagens Nyheter. First of all, Mr. President, thank you very much for the hospitality this week. It's been very interesting. I'm wondering if you would like to comment on the story from Reuters this morning saying that Rwanda has provided logistical financial support to Burundian rebels. To Burundian rebels. It's quoted from a Security Council report.
Well, I think I wonder whether this is the first such a report you have read. It's not new. It's not a new discovery. It's an old report, almost as old as the recent story of problems in Burundi that they have faced for 1 year and a half. But I think the most important thing for Burundi or for whichever news channel that wants to talk about Burundi, well, and even for Burundi themselves, the best thing for them is to look at whatever problems they are having as their own, rather than making it sound like it's a problem that originates from elsewhere, from outside of Burundi, that is not really their problem, or that their problem, or that they don't have a problem at all in their country. I think that would be very helpful in addressing the problem itself, but also in dismissing whatever rumors that pass around about that situation. I think, so for me, I go for the main things, the real issues, not to play around with rumors here and there. But we also have tens of thousands of refugees from Burundi. It's another problem that they have brought to us. So I think if people are talking about the refugees who are here produced by the problem of Burundi, it would be more helpful than the imagination of rebels that would have originated from here or based here to cause problems in Burundi. So those people who write such stories could also be mobilized to be useful in addressing countries' problems instead of exacerbating them or creating problems that shouldn't be there.
Lucas?
I'm Lucas from Tanzania,
Right.
the Guardian newspaper.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana. Recently, Tanzania and Rwanda opened a new chapter of relations with the coming of visiting. Recently, Tanzania and Rwanda opened a new chapter of relations with the coming of the visit by President Magufuli in Rwanda. How do you foresee that relationship? And second, I understand that you will be hosting the African Union Summit in July. How Rwanda is prepared to host that meeting, taking the experience of the just ended World Economic Forum on Africa?
First, we are happy for what has happened in Tanzania in the recent months, for the change there, and which change brought a very good relationship between Rwanda and Tanzania, which we had in the previous times taken almost for granted because Tanzania and Rwanda are neighbors and have related very well for quite some time and for good reasons. So, and then we came to witness some problems that happened that for me shouldn't have happened. So I'm thankful to President Magufuli, the new elected leader of Tanzania, for, among other things, he's trying to put right for his country and his contribution to the region. He has also chosen to improve and continue to improve the relationship between Rwanda and Tanzania. I'm sure he's doing that for other situations as well that may be similar to Rwanda's. So we are happy for that. And I think we are going to do a lot of things together. You've seen our joint investment in the area of infrastructure when we went to open this very important bridge that links us on the eastern border of Rwanda's eastern border, Rusumo, the improvement of the port of Dar es Salaam and how Rwanda can use it in a much better way, and the link between Rwanda from all the way Dar es Salaam to Kigali and beyond in the region, thinking about making the right investments in the area of infrastructure and that would improve trade and other activities that are essential for our growth. So for July hosting of the African Union Summit, we are happy, first of all, and we are ready to host that. We will do it to the level of our best, and we will put in our best efforts. And I'm sure we will work with the others. The African Union Commission itself plays a role, and we will work with them, and I know they will be very helpful and supportive of making it a success themselves. So we are quite ready, I think. We will see that the people will be happy being here.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, and thank you for having us. My name is Arnold Sego. I'm with CNBC Africa. I do have two questions. My first question starts with Uganda changed their mind in the final stages for the pipeline. Initially, it was supposed to go through Kenya, Lokisho, then end up at Lamu. And they suddenly changed their mind to go through Tanzania at Tanga. And what does this mean for Rwanda? Are you about to tap into the pipeline? Chivuwat is about to come on line. The inauguration is on the 16th of May. Are you about to tap into this gas pipeline for Chivuwat? The second question, Mr. President, has to be yesterday when President Museveni was swearing in, international media was reporting him offending the ICC with President Bashir there. As the AU summit draws closer, if President Bashir comes here, what will be the repercussions?
Well, the first one, we are happy if the region or parts of the region, countries make such a joint investments, whether in the pipeline or the railway or whichever, in electricity and so we are very happy. So what is happening between Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda in terms of the pipeline, they are the most affected. They are the ones in the forefront to make these investments for obvious reasons of the resources they have on their own territory. But at the same time, parallel to that, Rwanda and other East Africans who may be affected by that one way or the other, we are always happy to relate, even if it was to go through Kenya and to Mombasa, still would be implicated one way or the other. If they have chosen to do it through Tanzania to wherever in Tanzania, we would still want to relate. So we are naturally part of the East African community, and we will always be supportive of the general efforts to try and improve things as they are. And if it is not one way it is happening, it will always be another way it will happen, and we are very happy for that. Now, so I'm sure for the other part of that, your question, you would probably get more satisfaction by asking Uganda or Tanzania or Kenya, as they are the leading countries in these decisions, particular decisions about the pipeline. For the summit, we are holding a summit. I mean, we are hosting the summit. And we have obligations. Actually, the people who come here are invited by those who organize the summit. We are not the ones to decide who comes and who doesn't come. It's the organizers of the summit. We are not the organizers of the summit. We are hosts of the summit, right? If the organizers invite Bashir, and I think they will, and he's part of, Sudan is part of the African Union. So, first of all, on what basis and who are we to say you can't come here because ICC said so? No. That's another territory. That's another thing. So we will host whoever the organizers of the African Union Summit invites to come here, no doubt. So the ICC issues will be addressed by those who want to address them and who are concerned. I'm not very much concerned with ICC issues. And maybe I will also inform you that Rwanda is not signatory to the statute of ICC for reasons we have explained over and over and over again. So, but for hosting, we are hosting African Union Summit. We are not the organizers, we are not the invitees, we are not. So we try and do the best job of that.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Yann Guit. I'm a columnist for Le Monde, Afrique. I have three very short questions. I read yesterday a very interesting piece by Fred Swaniker, who's the founder of African Leadership University, and the title was "Great Leaders are not born, they are made, and Africa is showing us how." My first question is, what do you think of that idea? The second question, which is in relation with the first one, in the context of Africa, in your opinion, what makes a great leader? And the third one is, what does it mean to be Rwandan? Thank you.
Very interesting. First of all, I think this issue of leadership, born or made, and is an old one. It's not. It hasn't started with that comment by Fred recently. I read the comment, and I think he well articulated what he was talking about. And I actually would, I'm not sure myself, but I would associate with his opinion. But beyond his opinion, I'm not sure whether they are made or born, or both. I would want to think maybe both. I think in a person, and what comes out of the person, what they do, how they do things, and the whole development of a person, I think there are two forces acting on an individual. One is the nature. I think in our genes we are mostly similar, but we may behave differently or act differently because of a very, very tiny, as we've seen, genetically there are people who have certain abilities different from others. It doesn't mean it better, it means different, depending on what one is talking about. So, but at the same time, the environment in which we grow up also has an impact on people that will shape them in a certain way. Now, if you have the two combined, how they interact with situations, with problems, with, will be different. And maybe I want to believe that with leadership as well, how you lead, how you act, how you manage things, how you process and make decisions and make considerations of different things you have to bear in mind will be different, but influenced by these two factors, in my opinion. So I have no major difference with the statement. Maybe one can expand it to, I think that's fine. Now, in the African context, who do I consider to be a leader? Leaders are considered, well, African context or other contexts, there's what is general to all of them, I imagine. But the African context and relating those to leadership, very importantly, what you've brought up is, therefore you are saying leadership may also be contextual. That's important. So in the context where people are emerging and growing, the context is important. So there is a context of Africa. I completely agree with you. There is an African context. But it's not only the only defining factor, because there is the global context also in which Africa is to be considered. So I guess African leaders need to understand the African context. But they must also understand the global context in which the African context plays. And Africa is not an island, it's part of the world we live in. So I think if Africans act as they understand African problems and the context and are challenged and are trying to look for solutions for the African problems of Africa are clear and known. And so how they carry along other Africans in whatever setting, if you are a president of a country or you are a leader of a different situation in Africa, how do you act to deal with these challenges, but how do you interact and carry along others also to participate, and how do you engage them to find the solutions is what will define that leader and define that leader in the African context. So the last one was, which one, the third?
What does it mean to be Rwandan?
Oh, it means, first of all, being Rwandan is being African, and being Rwandan is just an African in a specific circumstance, and I think being Rwandan is being Rwandan, and we want to be Rwandans that can be at our best for our country, and the country that we can be proud of, and the Rwandan that cannot just confine their feelings and their emotions and actions to Rwanda, but in that wider family of Africa, and also remembering that we are part of this bigger world.
Let's take another question. Martina?
Hello, sir. Martina Stebbes from the Wall Street Journal. Thanks for me also for your warm hospitality. I wanted to talk a little bit about private sector investment in Rwanda. For example, we've seen investment in the banking sector. What sectors do you feel are going to attract the biggest focus from investors, and in terms of sort of size of the investments, in terms of money, but also in terms of creating jobs? There's a lot of discussion around ICT, but there's also concern that ICT doesn't create jobs, it makes some functions easier. So yeah, where do you expect the biggest boost to this economy to come from?
Well, some of them you have already mentioned. The banking sector or the wider financial sector is key, and we want investments there, and the investments contribute in many ways, including creating jobs, as you rightly said. So that's key. But we've already seen trends. We already have seen which sectors are growing and what they need to stimulate more growth. So we are pretty much aware of which ones. And then if you look at the financial sector, if you look at the services sector generally that include hospitality, area of tourism, and the services that go along that, and continued growth we have seen one year to another. But it's not just that, it's also the looking at long term, what we are talking about, and based on thinking that promoting and trying to attract investments in key areas that provide jobs, employment for people, is one driving factor. And well, IT isn't I don't entirely want to believe that there are no jobs created in IT sector, because it's either direct or indirect. Yes. So even because IT supports those services areas, for example, we are talking about. So in fact, IT cuts across. But it's an enabler, but as well as an area of investment. So in between you get people finding jobs, or even being able to create jobs based on the innovations that can be built on IT capacity, as we have seen. So agriculture is one area we think we haven't really realized the full potential. We are still operating at a fraction of what we can achieve in agriculture, knowing what it holds. So agro-processing, the industries around that, they provide jobs, but they add to growth significantly. And we've realized food security, but also the exports that can come from that and bring money that we want. So agro-industries are key. They create jobs. We need that for so. And but we also want to focus on this cross-cutting issue of manufacturing, creating industries of some of the sectors which we haven't. For example, we are seeing more investments, and we want more investments. We are beginning to develop our textiles industry. That is one area. People are looking at leather processing. That's another, and so on and so forth. So these are really the key drivers. As we see other commodities, we are seeing mining sector being affected negatively by declining demand globally. And so processing, manufacturing, adding value to things we have in different sectors is going to be useful.
Collins?
Thank you, sir. My name is Mwai Collins. I write for the New Times Daily. Mine is on in the face of the global economic slowdown, how can emerging countries and African countries build resilience to get past the tough times and have shocks in the event of reoccurrence of such slowdown? Thank you.
You see, how do I put it? Sometimes I'm surprised because slowdowns will continue to occur. And they have occurred in the past. We might be seeing part of that now, and maybe in another future. They may keep happening in cycles. And for Africa particularly, there are things we are not doing that we should be doing that could help actually make our economies more resilient, even in the wake of such shocks as we are seeing. And yet we don't do that. And every time these shocks come up and we come say, no, what are we going to do now? And then maybe they come to pass and we continue to behave as if nothing happened, or as if there's nothing we can do to cushion ourselves from the future shocks. What do I mean, for example, here? Can anyone really tell me why in Africa we don't trade with one another? If you look at the intra-African trade level, it's very tiny, yet it holds huge potential for actually making our economies resilient. So we don't do that. We wait until those who order for our commodities have decided to say one morning and say, you know what, we don't need your thing now. And then we start scrambling and wondering. But you should be expecting this to happen at one time. You've seen it with, for example, oil-producing countries. You know, they have had a long lead time to that situation, and they have been getting good money from that. If they had reinvested that differently over time, that money, maybe by the time this decline happened, the prices going down, they would be better off than now when prices go down. They still produce oil, there is not much demand for it, the prices are very low, and then we start wondering how do we escape this? Actually, they could easily have escaped it if they had addressed that problem much earlier, and so on and so forth. We can go on with many examples. So I think Africa, we need, African countries need to wake up at some point, and by working together, by working individually on their economies, do some of the things that we need to be doing that, you know, you have had the blame that we always take, and more or less insensitively, we are not maybe sensitive to that. If they say, well, we what do they say? We produce what we don't consume and consume what we don't produce. So why should that be the case? Why don't we consume what we produce as well as what we can't produce that is produced by others, instead of just being as such? And it's not as if we can't correct it and do things. So tackling the problem of our economies, the slowdown and so on, just by touch and go, it doesn't help us. So I'd rather we look long term.
Yes, Zoe?
Thank you. My name is Zoe Flood, and I'm working on a special on technology in Africa for The Guardian. So thank you, Mr. President. Can I just ask, there's been so much talk about a fourth industrial revolution across the continent. Do you think it is realistic to hope for a digital transformation that is truly universal across the African continent, given the wide-ranging incomes, different national priorities? And given that, what do you think is holding this transformation back? Which factors are holding it back the most across the continent?
Transformation or lack of it is very broad. It's not just in one area, but also as we know it. You see, maybe some things overlap here. Lack of transformation in Africa is not because of lack of or too much technology. You see what I mean? So it's because of something else. It's because of, and over time, the other day I was asking people, I said, for anything we are talking about leadership, we are talking about technology, we are talking about all kinds of useful stuff. But in Africa, for me, if we don't answer the question of, for example, Africa is the richest, actually one of the richest, if not the richest continent in the world, if you look at it in terms of natural resources. And also people, we are now getting over 1 billion people. So why, and how can you be so rich yet so poor at the same time? We need to be answering this question. It's not because we lack technology as such, just that. Neither can it be because we may be too ambitious and wanting to have too much technology for us. So this is irrelevant. In fact, these ones come as a consequence of quite other problems. So, fourth industrial revolution, what does it mean? My understanding of it is we are having a fusion here of these emerging and fast-growing new technologies, 3D printing, or artificial intelligence, or whatever have you. And these ones relating to industrial production, where people worry, they get people out of jobs, even though we agree that they also increase and ease on how much we can produce. That's a different question we can answer and debate that as much as we can. But there is another problem. You are calling it fourth industrial revolution, so that means there have been other previous revolutions. 1, 2, 3. But again, when I do some research and look around, I find actually Africa, we have been bypassed by these revolutions, and we got very little out of these revolutions. So then the problem must be different. But the best approach for me now, it doesn't mean we should continue to lament and say, oh, revolutions have been bypassing us and there's nothing we can do, even the fourth one, let's give up and let's not be. I would rather we have these overlaps. You have one foot in the previous revolution, which is the third one, and then you have another foot in the fourth, and you are trying to. But it all comes down to one point. If you look at global production value chains, where does Africa find itself? Where at the bottom end. And why? Because, for example, if somebody wants to start an industry here, like I was saying, talking about textile, about leather, about, entering the global market to say, this is textile from Rwanda, made in Rwanda. The first thing, somebody in Europe or somebody in America or even wherever, they say, textiles from Rwanda? What is, Rwanda can't produce anything. There is already that misperception. So because, and at the same time, to produce something, you need quantity, but also quality. So somebody doing different transactions around whatever item you want to produce will be saying, no, but even if I tell Rwandans to supply me this, will they have enough? Maybe they will deliver one day, and the next day when I ask for this thing, they say, no, we are sorry, we had some shortfall. So they will not go with you. The same thing in terms of quality. They are spoiled for looking around wherever for something that is of a certain quality, and for you to assure them that your quality is competitive is going to be difficult. So because of lack of Africa's footprint in this global market, we are affected as such. And then we start worrying about things we shouldn't be worrying about. we start worrying about fourth industrial revolution. But is that even your problem, your first problem? I think your problem is completely different one, but this one can be part of a solution to the previous problems you've been having. But you've got to look at the whole thing holistically, not just piecemeal. You are about this, and then another time you are about something. You're not looking at the whole picture. This is really the main problem of Africa. And there's so many of these questions that we need to answer, and the faster and the earlier we do that, the better for us.
Take a couple more questions. RBA.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Ruziga Emmanuel Masantu. I work for RBA. It's evident that Rwanda hosted WEF successfully. So my question is, what might be the specific takeaways from hosting this huge conference, specifically for Rwanda?
The main takeaway is that it has been successful. So I'm happy that you are telling me this. I needed somebody else tell me. First of all, I'm happy that hosting such an event, we are hosting for the first time. If what you are saying is true and is successful, it means we can host such events successfully. And maybe this is something we can capitalize on for what they are worth. Such events connect Rwanda to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world gets connected to Rwanda. And it's a good thing. In between, good transactions take place that improve our economy and contribute to our development. So it means there is some decent capacity that has been created over the years that can allow us to host a good event, and even if the pass mark was 70%, I'm happy with that. If we can make it 80 and 90%, so much the better even. So, but we should all be happy that if we can pull off this one, then maybe you can do with some other cases.
Thank you very much. My name is Veniste Kamanzi, writing for Umuseke newspaper. My question is about economic inequality, but because of our audience, please allow me to ask it in Kinyarwanda. Ejo mwagarutse nanone ngaho mumaze kugaruka ku buryo Afrika impinduramatwara zabanje zagiye ziyicaho na isigaye inyuma cyangwa nta kintu zisigiye, ariko zanasize ubusumbane cyane hagati y'abaturage, abakire n'abakene. Muri sessions zabaye muri iyi nama bagarutse kuri inclusion, uburyo abaturage bose cyangwa se abatuye isi bose bajyana noneho mu bukungu muri impinduramatwara ya kane. Ese mubona bishoboka ko ako gasumbane cyangwa ubwo busumbane bwavamo? Ese hakorwa iki kugira ngo muri iyi impinduramatwara ya kane he kuzaba hakiriho abaturage bicwa n'inzara, abandi bakize cyane ku buryo bamena? Murakoze.
You see, I'll come back to your question, by the way. There's something probably I didn't respond to, which I'm helped to go back to at some point by the question being asked to me in Kinyarwanda. I'll come to that later. Impinduramatwara ntabwo arizo dukwiriye gushyira mu majwi ngo nizo zizana ibibazo. Ni abantu. Ni abantu, ntabwo tuzagira ngo tuvuge ngo technology niyo yazanye ubusumbane, no. Ni abantu, ukuntu the whole thing uko biriho bikorwa nibyo bizana ubusumbane. Ntabwo rero impinduramatwara iyo zizabaho kandi zikwiye kubaho, ariko ntabwo impinduramatwara azitera ibibazo, kuko ntabwo bizanwa n'abantu. Abantu nibo babikora. Hanyuma muri politiki z'ibihugu uko ubukungu muri iyo mpinduramatwara uko bugenda ba nyirabyo nibo baba bafite ikibazo kurusha ko ari impinduramatwara yadutse ikaza izana ubusumbane. Kandi nk'uko bivuga ubusumbane urabona impinduramatwara ya kane irabusanze ni ukuvuga ngo ntabwo ari ibuzanye ahubwo irabusanze. Ni ukuvuga ngo impinduramatwara zindi zaje mbere zari zifite ubusumbane niba ariko ushaka kubivuga. So ni abantu rero ni uburyo ngira ngo ni politiki y'ukuntu ibihugu bigenda bitera imbere n'ukuntu kwakuzana abantu ukabashyira mu bikorwa bya buri munsi ku buryo bagira uruhare bituma ubwo busumbane bugabanuka. What I was answering, which I said that maybe I missed, I didn't answer in your question, which was very pertinent, is about inequality. I was just trying to add that inequalities are not brought by these revolutions. Inequalities are brought by people and how they manage whatever revolutions that come about. And in any case, we are saying the fourth industrial revolution actually is finding inequality. It's not, we can't say, no, it is bringing inequality which we did not have. No, so it's maybe adding to the inequality that is there. So the cause of inequality is something else. It's the management of the economies and the policies of countries and how people get involved in and participate in these different revolutions that affect our economies, whether it's production or other cases. I think there's more to do with that than really technologies that have come. I think we are using technologies as excuses to explain our problems which we should have handled otherwise, and we don't do for a long time.
With your permission, sir, maybe we take 2 more questions.
Sure.
Okay, I'll go to the end, Juma. Rama.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. President. Rama Nyang with CCTV Africa. 2 very quick questions, if I may. Would Rwanda consider co-funding infrastructure projects across East Africa with, say, Kenya or Uganda or Tanzania, especially those that have a regional dimension like the railway? And I would also like to know what's Rwanda's aviation policy, especially with regard to unmanned aerial vehicles, because it seems within East Africa, Rwanda is the only country that actually has an experimental approach to letting businesses run with UAVs and drones to deliver services.
Well, in fact, we have been engaging our colleagues in the region for this co-funding some of the infrastructure projects. In fact, that's how the Northern Corridor integration projects came up. But as Rwanda, we will have to look at investing in those projects first and foremost that have direct and immediate impact on us. For example, if I was to choose between co-funding, because every country has limited resources. So given that Rwanda has limited resources, if I was given a choice to co-fund either a railway project and a pipeline project, I'll go for railway first. It's more immediate to me than the pipeline project. But I want all of them. The only limitation is how much, in terms of resources, do I have at my disposal. I would wish, and we would want to co-invest with our regional partners in every project. But we don't have unlimited resources, so we shall have to prioritize. So, but as a principle, if that was the question, absolutely yes. We want to go that route. And in fact, that possibility is there and has been declared already within the East African regional context. So that's it. For drones, drones are a very useful thing, and we are investing our time and resources and everything to in this area, commercial drones and for different services, and like in the health sector, and it will involve any other sector, depending on how we keep growing. I think something decent is already going on, and we are happy to do that. But at the same time, we are aware of certain risks involved, but which are manageable, I'm sure. And as we have seen elsewhere, drones bring certain levels of risk in aviation industry. We've been following, you see, they say a drone either almost hit a passenger plane, or they missed each other narrowly, or actually hit it. So they keep saying, oh, if it hit this place, what would happen, and so on. All those are things to take care of, and we are trying to take care of it in saying, to an extent, in our case, we have already designated certain paths for drones and certain levels, and then the way to monitor them also, so that if the path is this one, then you alert people using our airspace to say, in this area, take this care. But of course, that doesn't eliminate the risk 100%, because sometimes you rely on other people's discipline to say, if you have said use this route, that they are actually going to use that route. Somebody in the midway may decide to pass another route. So but because we have added these different layers, which are yet to be improved to work more efficiently, then you are able to monitor and say, well, but much as we have drawn routes for aviation, for drones, actually they are not being respected, and so on and so forth. Or even awareness itself, people being aware, these people who use drones, sometimes you find they're in this hotel, decide to stand outside there and start playing around with a drone, which, so once people are aware and we continue improving on certain levels of discipline of how this works, I think it will work very well. And this is being drawn within the civil aviation area.
Let's take one more question. Clement?
Thank you very much. My name is Clement for Reuters. Mine is about economy. We saw the central bank saying that Rwanda's economy would grow 6.3%. Would grow 6.3%, and it had grown to 6.9 last year, and of course it's a declining. What is Rwanda doing to make sure that Rwanda's economy grows as normal as 7% or more than that? Thanks.
I don't know which is normal. Well, 6.3% is still very impressive. Not only in East Africa, but globally, actually. So, but you are right. We wish we could grow higher than that. If you can 7 or 8, why grow 6.3%? But there are a number of things people are trying to address, especially in the balance of payments area, and trying to grow our exports and things like that. And I think that's why we still have anyway 6.3%, is because something is being done, and even with all the constraints we have beyond our control, meaning the global situation, we still think we can. For example, in as I said, commodities area, in the mining industry, we have seen decline in the receipts for our minerals. But there's not much we can do about it. Because the ones we've been selling our minerals to, they say, you know what, we are constipated. We can't take in anymore. We can't. So what do we do? Then, but there are those items that we can produce that are still on demand, or different gaps we can fill that may partially or even entirely depend here on how much we are able to do, not so much how the problem of the other one. So we still have to identify critically these simple areas.
Mr. President, if you're happy, we can stop here.
Sorry?
If you're happy, sir, we can stop here.
Well, if you're happy, I'm happy.
I think we're happy, sir. I'd like to thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Have a good weekend, sir.